Managing diabetes really means paying close attention to what you eat, and that's especially true for vegetables. Now, while we often hear about how great most vegetables are for our health, some can actually be a bit tricky and mess with blood sugar levels. So today we're going to uncover 6 of these sneaky culprits. These are vegetables often thought of as healthy, but if you have diabetes, you'll want to be a little cautious with them to keep your blood sugar in check. Top 6 hidden sugar culprits that can worsen diabetes. 1. Potatoes. First up, we have potatoes. Now, potatoes are a staple in so many meals, right? But they can be quite a challenge for managing blood sugar because they're packed with carbohydrates. Just one medium-sized potato can have a surprising amount of carbs, which then turn into glucose in your bloodstream pretty quickly. Another thing to keep in mind is the glycemic index, or GI, of potatoes. Generally, they're high on the GI scale, meaning they can cause a fast spike in blood sugar. Interestingly, though, the GI can change a bit depending on the type of potato and, really importantly, how you cook it. For example, boiled potatoes usually have a slightly lower GI compared to baked or mashed ones. And we definitely need to talk about French fries and potato chips. These are often processed and fried in unhealthy fats, making them a double whammy. You get the high GI carbs plus unhealthy fats, which can make insulin resistance even worse. So what can you do? Well, portion control is absolutely key. Think about a sensible serving, maybe about half a cup of mashed potatoes or one small potato about the size of your fist. It's also a great idea to consider healthier alternatives. Cauliflower mash, for instance, gives you a similar texture but with way fewer carbs. Sweet potatoes, in moderation, can also be a good choice because they have a slightly lower GI and more fiber. Here's a neat trick. Cooking potatoes and then letting them cool can increase their resistant starch, which might help lessen the blood sugar spike. But honestly, for consistent blood sugar control, it's often best for folks with diabetes to cut back on potatoes and choose vegetables that are less starchy. 2. Corn. Next on our list is corn. Many of us love that sweet, crunchy taste corn adds to our meals, but it's another starchy vegetable that people with diabetes need to be careful with. That sweetness we enjoy? It comes from a hefty amount of carbohydrates. Believe it or not, just half a cup of corn kernels can pack about 21 grams of carbs. Now, corn does have some dietary fiber, usually around 2 grams for that half-cup serving. But because of the ratio of carbs to fiber, it can still cause a pretty noticeable jump in blood sugar for a lot of people. This happens because the carbs in corn are mainly starches and sugars, which convert to glucose quickly. So if you're including corn in your diabetes-friendly meals, portion size is really important. Try to stick to a small serving, like half an ear of corn or about half a cup of kernels. This can help lessen its effect on your blood sugar. Another good tip is to pair corn with lean protein and other foods high in fiber, like leafy greens or beans, to help soften that glucose response. It's also worth thinking about the season. Fresh corn, when it's in season, can be great, but how you prepare it is key. Boiling or grilling corn without adding sugar or too much fat is a much better choice than, say, creamed corn or corn casseroles. Those dishes often have extra high carb and high fat ingredients that can make blood sugar spikes even worse. With a bit of careful planning, you can still enjoy corn occasionally without throwing your diabetes management off track. 3. Peas. All right, let's talk about peas, especially green peas. We often think of them as a healthy vegetable, and it's true, they do give us valuable nutrients like vitamins and fiber. However, compared to non-starchy vegetables, peas are actually quite a bit higher in carbohydrates. For example, a 1-cup serving of cooked green peas has about 20 grams of carbohydrates. Now, peas usually have a low to moderate glycemic index, which means they should have a slower impact on blood sugar. But because of their carbohydrate content, eating larger portions can still add a lot to your daily carb count and potentially raise your blood glucose levels. So, if you have diabetes, it's really important to watch your portion sizes when you're eating peas. A good rule of thumb is to stick to about half a cup. How you cook them matters too. Simple steamed or lightly boiled peas are much better than peas cooked in sugary sauces or rich, creamy dishes. And you'll want to be extra careful with processed forms, like canned split pea soups. These can be high in sodium and might even have added sugars or other things that aren't great for blood sugar. Even though peas offer protein and fiber, which are good for you, it's all about balancing those benefits with careful blood sugar management. That means eating them mindfully and being aware of how many carbs they're adding to your meal plan. 4. Winter squash, like butternut or acorn. Moving on, let's look at winter squashes. Varieties like butternut, acorn, and spaghetti squash are really popular because of their sweet, nutty flavors, and many people think of them as healthy choices. And they do offer good vitamins, minerals, and fiber. However, they're quite a bit more starchy and higher in carbs than summer squashes, such as zucchini. To give you an idea, 1 cup of cooked butternut squash has about 22 grams of carbohydrates. A good chunk of that is natural sugars, which gives it that sweetness, but also means it can raise blood sugar levels. The glycemic index for these squashes can differ, but it's usually in the moderate to high range, depending on the exact type and how it's cooked. So, if you're managing diabetes, it's really important to be mindful of your portions when you eat winter squash. A serving of about half a cup cooked is usually a better amount to help avoid big blood sugar spikes. Healthier ways to cook them include roasting or steaming, rather than versions that have added sugars, syrups, or a lot of butter. Even spaghetti squash, which is often suggested as a lower carb alternative to pasta, still has a notable amount of carbs, so portion control is still key there. The main thing is to balance enjoying these tasty, nutrient-rich vegetables with their impact on your carbs. This is really important for managing diabetes effectively and making sure they fit into your overall diet without messing with your blood sugar stability. 5. White rice and refined flour products. Now, this next one isn't technically a vegetable, but it's often served with them and can be a major issue. White rice and products made from refined flour. These are big contributors to blood sugar spikes and can act like hidden sugar sources in your meals. These starchy foods go through a lot of processing, which strips away the bran and germ from the grains. When that happens, most of the fiber, vitamins, and minerals are lost, leaving behind a simple carbohydrate that your body digests really quickly. This fast digestion means it turns into glucose rapidly, causing a sharp jump in blood sugar levels. Think about things like white rice, white bread, tortillas made from refined flour, and naan. Their glycemic index is usually high, which is especially tricky for people with diabetes. So, common foods you'll want to limit or even avoid include plain white rice, pasta made from refined flour, white bread, and a lot of store-bought baked goods or snacks. If you do eat these foods, portion control is absolutely crucial. But really, the best approach is to choose healthier whole grain options instead. Things like brown rice, quinoa, whole wheat pasta, and whole grain bread have more fiber. This fiber slows down digestion and helps your blood sugar rise more gradually. When you're planning your meals, be sure to think carefully about these refined carbohydrates, because their impact can unfortunately cancel out the benefits of the healthy vegetables you're putting on your plate. 6. Certain canned and processed vegetables. And finally, number 6. While fresh or frozen vegetables are usually fantastic choices, some canned and processed vegetables can actually create problems for blood sugar management and overall health if you have diabetes. The main worries here are often high levels of added sodium and preservatives. Plus, the way these vegetables are processed can change their nutrient content and how they affect your blood sugar. For example, a lot of canned vegetables are packed in salty solutions, which can lead to high blood pressure, and that's a common issue that goes along with diabetes. Also, some processed vegetable products, like certain sauces or pre-made vegetable dishes, might have hidden sugars or unhealthy fats added to make them taste better or last longer on the shelf. So, what are some of the problematic options? Well, think about high-sodium pickles, some kinds of sauerkraut, especially those that aren't naturally fermented or have added sugars, and also canned vegetables that come in cream or sauce. It's so important to get good at reading labels. Look for phrases like no salt added or low sodium, and always check the ingredient list for any added sugars, syrups, or unhealthy fats. The healthier way to go is to choose fresh or frozen vegetables as much as you can. If you do use canned vegetables, give them a good rinse under water to wash off some of that extra sodium. And picking vegetables canned in water instead of brine or sauce is also a smart move. By being a savvy shopper and careful about how you prepare your food, you can really cut down on the negative effects that can come with some processed vegetable options. Strategic meal planning for blood sugar management. Now, managing blood sugar effectively isn't just about picking the right foods, it's also about how you plan your meals strategically. Did you know that the order in which you eat your food can actually make a big difference in your blood sugar response after a meal? It's true. Research has shown that eating non-starchy vegetables and protein before you eat carbohydrates can lead to a slower and less sharp rise in blood sugar. This happens because the fiber and protein help to slow down digestion and the absorption of glucose from those carb-rich foods you eat later in the meal. A really practical way to think about this is using the plate method. Imagine your plate. Fill half of it with non-starchy vegetables, then 1/4 with lean protein, and the last quarter with carbohydrate-rich foods. This could be starchy vegetables or whole grains. This approach naturally helps you get more fiber and nutrients, and it also helps you control the portions of foods that tend to have a bigger impact on your blood sugar. Creating balanced meals is so important, especially if you're including some of those higher GI vegetables we've been talking about. If you pair them with plenty of fiber, healthy fats, and protein, it can help lessen their impact on your blood sugar. And, very importantly, always remember to practice portion control with starchy vegetables, even when they're part of a balanced meal. This will help you avoid those unwanted blood sugar spikes and keep your energy levels steady all day long. Better vegetable choices for diabetes. So, what are some better vegetable choices if you're managing diabetes? Well, a really key part of a healthy diet is to focus on non-starchy vegetables. These are fantastic because they're usually low in carbs and calories, but packed with fiber, vitamins, and minerals. This makes them excellent for controlling blood sugar and for your overall health. Some great examples of diabetes-friendly, non-starchy vegetables include leafy greens. Think spinach, kale, and lettuce. Cruciferous vegetables are also wonderful, like broccoli, cauliflower, Brussels sprouts, and cabbage. And don't forget other great options like bell peppers, cucumbers, tomatoes, green beans, asparagus, and mushrooms. These types of vegetables generally have a very low glycemic index, which means they'll only cause a tiny rise in your blood sugar. And to make sure you get all their nutritional goodness, try preparing them by steaming, roasting, grilling, or even just eating them raw. So to wrap things up, it's important to remember that no vegetable has to be completely off limits if you have diabetes. The key is understanding which ones are higher in carbohydrates and need to be eaten with a bit more care and moderation. By being mindful of your portion sizes, picking smart ways to cook your vegetables, and thinking strategically about the order you eat your food, you absolutely can enjoy a varied and satisfying diet while still keeping your blood sugar levels stable and well managed. Now, we'd love to hear from you. Have you ever noticed your blood sugar changing after eating certain vegetables? If you found this information helpful, please feel free to share it. And we'd be really interested to hear about your experiences, or if you have any questions, please drop them in the comments below.